What's happening, Sales Ascender? Sean here, back at you with another high-ticket tune-up. Hope you're doing well today. Curiously, have you ever been in a sales conversation and you know you can probably help somebody, but you haven't gotten deep enough into their world to really, truly understand if you can make a big impact or not? Well, in this video, I'm actually going to teach you a very, very efficient and effective way to fish for pain. You're going to love this one. Stay tuned. What's happening, Sales Center? Sean here, back at you with another high-ticket tune-up, and today we're going to dive into how to fish for pain in a high-ticket sales call. This one's going to be really valuable for you, and the question that came in was from Ron P. Ron asked this. He said, Sean, I'm good at connecting with my prospects, but I have a tough time learning if they have a problem that I solve. Is there any suggests? And yes, the answer to this one is pretty straightforward and fairly simple. We just need to learn how to fish for pain, right? And so there's a couple of things that we need to talk about when it comes to pain. The only reason we should be having a sales call is to understand if the person that we're speaking with has a problem that we actually solve. Most salespeople, traditional salespeople, again, it starts as a traditional salesperson, you move to a sales professional, and then you become a sales ascender eventually. When a traditional salesperson starts, one of the things that they do is they talk too much, right? What we should be doing in sales calls is listening, reiterating what we just heard, and asking questions. Those are basically the only three things that we should be doing during any sales call. But the cue here is, how do we get into their world a little bit and understand the type of pain that they may have? So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into how to fish for pain in a high ticket sales call. Of course, we got Yoda hanging out with us today, which is great. So let's move on to the next step. Well, what do we do? So first and foremost, we want to learn how to fish for pain, right? And so we actually get the prospect, we need to get them to bite. And how do we get them to bite? Well, we get them to bite by asking a question that's going to indicate whether or not they have the problem that they may solve. And so you can see here, as you're looking at this little chart, is we need to create what we call a negative reverse cue or question to get your prospect to actually bite. Negative reverse questions will draw your prospect's biggest pain point. So how do we do that? So here's an example. If the prospect is taking too many sales and not spending enough time with the family, taking too many sales calls and not spending enough time with family, the negative reverse question we can use. Okay, so that's the pain is, and so what we have to do before we go into the sales call is kind of premeditate the situation. What's the problem that they're facing? What's the personal impact? In this case, this person's banging it. They're just taking too many sales calls and they're not getting the time with their family. So the question we ask them very simply would be that, hey, Miss Prospect, are you struggling with a lack of time on your calendar? Are you just frustrated with not being able to spend as much time with your family? And then we be quiet, right? Because we're listening, we're asking questions, and we're reiterating what we say. And so when we throw a question out like that, they're going to say yes or no, right? This gives us the ability to ask multiple questions around multiple areas in a business. So time is one, money is another one, the lack of income could be another one. And so there's a lot of different things that we can say in the beginning of the sales call to really understand the problem you solve. So it always goes back to what's the problem you solve and what's the negative impact of not solving that problem. And then as we think through that, we'll come up with a few things like, oh man, if I don't have enough sales calls booked on my calendar, I freak out, I can't sleep at night. Those things, the freak out, the stress out, and the can't sleep at night become the pain or the fishing pain question that we want to toss at this prospect. And it's like, hey man, I actually just had this client recently who came to me and they're totally struggling because they were losing sleep. Every day they would get up and they would be just drained and they couldn't take sales call, or they couldn't really focus a lot. And what we found out was because they just didn't have a system in their business that could put the sales calls on their calendar. Like, is that, do you stay awake at night, like worrying about that? All of a sudden, this is a question somebody says, well, yeah, like I'm losing sleep because I don't have those types of questions. I don't have those types of opportunities. Boom. Now we know what the problem is. And once we get them to bite on one of the questions, we go to the next step. The next step is step 2. Very, very important here is we want to go deep. Use the magic 8 questions, and you can see them here. I'll actually zoom in even further so you can see this. Number 1 is tell me more, right? So when they say yes to one of those questions, what you want to say very, very quickly is, hey, tell me more about that, right? So right up, I guess you can't really see my mouse, but on the top right where it says Magic 8, those are the questions that we want to ask in a specific order. They were designed and built by psychologists, people that are way smarter than I am. And these are the questions that will psychologically some from a business indicator, right? This is a pain indicator. Hey, I'm losing sleep. That's the indicator. Tell me more about this. Can you be more specific? Why do you think you're losing sleep? How long have you been losing sleep? What have you tried to do to get more sleep? Oh, well, I've tried to put more sales calls on my calendar. I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. It didn't actually work for me. Oh my gosh, it didn't work. So that those things didn't work. Well, how much has this all cost you? And now we're getting into money. We understand kind of how much impact in terms of financials it's having on this person. Man, how do you feel about that? Well, I hate it because I can't sleep at night and I'm really stuck in this place. Oh man, but you haven't given up trying to solve this. No, I'm trying to build my business. And when you get there, you know exactly that this person has the personal impact, the emotional impact, and the business indicator of the problem that you solve. And then when you say, well, that's it, I need to show you what we got because I know I solve this problem for every single person. And when you do this multiple times, again, it's not just a one-time banger, get one pain and move forward, go through these 8 questions. Sometimes you can close a deal doing it that way. But the bigger hook here is going to be getting 2 or maybe 3 different pain points and taking them through this run of these 8 questions. This is going to draw out your sales conversation to a little bit of a longer call, but it's going to be much more focused on exactly what the prospect needs. And this is going to become a very, very important part of your sales conversation because you're going to be able to track down all the details and the data. And then you can take that data, turn it around and put it into your presentation later where you're going to close deals the most effective manner possible. So these are the 2 steps that you need to in order to be effective at fishing for pain. And again, very simply is just create a negative reverse question using an emotional trigger word like worried about, concerned with, struggling with, pissed off because of, ticked off by, annoyed with. Those are all great trigger words to start. So like, hey, are you annoyed with this? Are you struggling that this is happening? And asking one at a time is the secret. And when we get them to say yes, then we just simply move right into step 2, which you take them through those magic 8 questions in order. And when you get to that last one, that prospect is going to be on the other side of the table or the other side of the Zoom call, just being like, oh my God, like you totally are in my head. You know what I'm thinking and you feel my pain. How do we solve this? And here's a pro tip. Here's a super pro tip that I think is very valuable for a lot of people. If you can explain the problem that your prospect has better than anybody else, you'll get the business. Why? Because the prospect automatically, their alligator brain, their limbic system is thinking, man, if this person knows so deeply the problem that I'm experiencing, they must have an answer because they've probably gone through it before. And so that, my friends, is the exact secret on how to get really deep and go back and answer that question. Again, Ron's question was, I'm good at connecting, but I have a tough time learning if they have the problem I solve. These 2 steps will get you going in that right direction. And once you've learned how to fish for pain, your sales calls will become a lot more fun. I hope this one helped you. I know you've just been tuned up, and guess what? There's a sales ascender inside of each and every single one of you. And please, please, please share this with somebody who could use it. Feed the algorithm gods, like the page, like the channel, subscribe to the channel, hit all the notifications, do all that good stuff. And I can't wait to see you next time.